So just yesterday, a viewer with the dubious username DuckMcNutty posted this comment up above here to one of the videos on the channel, looking to understand what the earning potential for a laser business is. And a few others have emailed me similar questions, and some people have also asked for just doing more videos around the business itself. So what I wanted to cover in this video is just, can you actually earn enough to make a living? And if you're interested in that, then stick around. How's it going, everybody? Steve here. Welcome back to the channel, and certainly welcome to my workshop. Although today we're not actually going to build anything. Today we're going to talk about business. And as I mentioned in the lead-in, a few people have asked questions about the earning potential in a laser business. So what I wanted to do is lay down a couple of examples and crunch a few numbers, and you can decide for yourself whether there's enough earning potential for you to start a business. And what I wanted to do is a bit of a thought experiment to say, could you actually start a laser business and earn $100,000 a year? And we'll endeavor to answer that question. So let's get going. So the first thing we're going to need to understand is what products we're going to sell. And I don't mean individual items. What I mean is, are we going to sell in volume or are we going to do custom work? And there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So let's take some examples. In the volume market, let's say I'm making a keychain. A keychain has the actual ring where the keys go. Let's say that's 75 cents. It's going to have a piece of acrylic that we're going to cut out. Maybe that's another 50 cents, and there's some wear and tear on the laser. Let's say that's 5 cents. We'll cut out all the additional costs on taxes and rent and stuff. So our manufacturing cost for a typical keychain will be roughly $1.30. Now, if I'm going to list it somewhere because I have to sell in volume, Etsy's an obvious choice. Etsy will take roughly 20% of my retail cost. And now if we're going to sell it for $5, that means Etsy's stealing $1 from me. And apologies to Etsy, I don't really mean they're stealing it. But so my actual kind of factory all-in cost is $2.30, which means I'm making $2.70 on every sale. Now, that means, to answer my $100,000 question, that means I need to sell a little more than 37,000 of these things every year. That sounds like a lot. Now, in the low volume business, let's say I'm making signs. I make quite a few of those myself. So an acrylic sign. Let's say there's $20 worth of material in that. It does take a little longer to cut out, but maybe $1. Where I live, power's pretty cheap. But let's say it costs $1, give or take. When I sell this, I'm going to sell it for at least $150. Let's say, it's that. And that means my margins are going to be roughly $130. And we can argue about the dollar for the cost. But so let's assume it's $130. That means that to do my $100,000 earnings a year, I'm going to have to sell about 770 of these. Well, that's much better than 37,000 for sure. So clearly you go, well, this is a no-brainer. Let's just forget the volume market and let's do custom work. It's not quite that simple. So there's a couple of issues that you need to understand. First of all, 770 signs sounds like a small number, except there's not that many signs, right? You're probably selling locally, so you're kind of in a finite market. It's not a general business where, I broke my sign, so I need a new one. Whereas keychains, quite often, somebody will step on it, it'll break. So 770s, it's a challenge for signs. By contrast, with keychains, we need 37,000 units sold. Well, the advantage is everybody on the planet has a keychain of some sort. You probably have one on your keys right now. You may, in fact, have multiple keychains. Is it reasonable to expect 37,000 in sales? Yeah, probably. So maybe it's not such a bad business. But you need to deal with these things. And there's a couple ways you can solve some of these challenges that you're going to run into. The first one is if you want to make fewer units on either side, you can raise your prices. So let's say your keychain, instead of $5, you charge $10. That means, hey, you've cut it down to 18,000, 19,000 units. Much better. The challenge, of course, is some people may not tolerate doubling the cost. And if you're looking on Etsy, by all means, go search Etsy for keychains. You will find millions of them, literally. So there's competition. So you can't really necessarily double the cost, but you can kind of sneak it up in some situations. The other thing you can do is you can lower your expenses. So find, if you're honestly, if you're making 37,000 keychains, you're probably going to be able to negotiate better volume deals with different suppliers. Find suppliers that sell things cheaper anyway. So there's ways around this. So that's kind of the first aspect here of just figuring out how you're going to make 100,000 a year, is just understanding where you want to sell. And with that, let's just move on to the next thing. Okay, so the second thing you need to understand to get to your earning potential is your customer. You need to understand who you're selling this to. Now, I don't mean individual people, but how are you going to sell to them? And that kind of is determined by your customers. So you might have a storefront where people can walk in and say, hey, I need, a keychain, right? Just cut one up for me right now while I wait. That's certainly an opportunity. Now, you may not want to pay rent on a store because this isn't exactly a walk-in business. So your workshop could be somewhere outside of a typical city, but you tell people, hey, I can do local deliveries. You're targeting that local market, but you're delivering for them. So that's an appealing aspect for some people. The next kind of customer you have is a global customer. Global customers, all of a sudden you're not targeting the 100,000 people in your city, you're targeting billions of people anywhere on the planet. And there's an appeal to that as well. This is the Etsy business, for example, where somebody in Hong Kong could tap into your Etsy store and go, yeah, I want one of these, send it to me. So that's the kind of first aspect of the customer. So the second thing, now that you understand who your customer is, really where they are relative to you, the next thing you need to do is figure out how to market to them. And certainly if they're local, advertise in a newspaper or some ad magazine. Those things come out, they get delivered with your flyers quite often. If you already have quite a bit of money, you could advertise on a local radio station. That seems a little extreme for the laser business, but it's possible. Now, if you're going more global, then you're looking at things like a marketing campaign involving pop-up ads on Google or Facebook, or pick your social media site. So you can do these kinds of things. The other option you can do instead of doing this mass marketing is you can do specific target marketing. And by that I mean you're selling to a specific buyer. So you're really going to an individual person or an individual business and saying, hey, I have this, would you like to buy it, right? That's the first kind of step where you could go door to door, or in some cases, if you're doing kind of that custom business with lower volume, you can target a business. So I've kind of talked to a few real estate agents and said, hey, when you sell a house, you could leave a promotional item in the house, a cutting board on the counter. When the person comes in, they see this, welcome to your new home, Fred and Alice, and the real estate agent's name and number are located somewhere on the cutting board. It's a good idea, and it's a really low cost for the selling agent, and they love it. So you can do that kind of thing as well. The kind of third area you can market is you can target craft stores or stores that sell one-off items, unique items. I happen to live in an area that's very scenic, so there's a lot of tourism. There's a lot of stores that sell souvenirs, and people like that as well. And the advantage there is you never really run out of market, even though you're still effectively selling locally, because every week there's a new batch of tourists coming along looking for souvenirs. That's kind of the second aspect of figuring out your earning potential. If you can excel at that marketing aspect to those customers you now understand, your earning potential goes way up. Okay, so you've now defined your customer and you know how to reach them through your marketing campaign. Now they need to reach back to you. They've discovered you. Now you need to sell to them, and you need to figure out where you're going to sell items. Now, if you're in that volume business, it's actually pretty obvious. You go to places like Etsy, you can do Facebook, you can do Facebook ads or create a Facebook page that people can discover. You could set up a Shopify site, and you could use that actually for local or global business. You can have your own website, which is tending towards more local, but people will find you if you have a website and you have a good SEO kind of definition for your website, so people can find it on Google. The more local aspects are things like craft shows or trade shows. So for me, if I'm selling signs, I'm not going to go to a craft show. I'm going to go to a trade show because that's where businesses go to find things out. So you can do that. And finally, you can go old school here and you can just pound the pavement. And I don't mean if you're selling keychains, go door to door and knock on everybody's door and say, hey, do you want to buy my keychain? Not for that. This is more for targeting businesses. So walk down a street and say, hey, you walk into a store and say, hey, your sign looks really terrible. I can build you a better one, right? Are you interested? And show them some examples. So you can do it that way. And the advantage of that one is you actually build up personal relationship. So these are kind of the areas where, you can understand how you can sell or where you can sell. So now you know the kind of triad of things that if you get perfect, your earning potential goes way up and gets you closer, if not exceeding that $100,000. So there you go. We've defined those three aspects of our business that we need. We know who our customer is, we know how to reach them, and we now have provided a way for them to reach us. Now, if you get those three things right and you have the right commitment and passion for this business, could you make $100,000 a year? Yeah, maybe. Certainly it depends on the market, but it's possible. Now, I would say unless you have kind of a pre-established ability to do some custom work, start with the volume business because for no other reason than it gets your name out there. It's a little more effort, but really that's your test of truth anyway to see how passionate you are about the business. Now, if you are going to go into the volume business, you're not going to make one keychain at a time. You're going to make 50 of them. And if you do that, I'll post a video up here to show you how to make a laser jig where you can make 50 of anything. And go watch that video. If you do, I'll see you over there. Otherwise, go make your world. But this time, go make everyone else's world because that's where your earning potential comes from. And I'll see you next time.